Hi. Hello. Hey everybody, welcome back to IGO. My name is Kristen and today we are going to be talking with Torben, who is one of the artists and writers of Space Sprout, an incredibly unique title. I've never really seen anything quite like it. I'm going to be really excited to share this game with you and hopefully you can go and snag it on Steam. Torben is an incredibly talented artist and if you're not, you should definitely go follow him on Instagram. And make sure that you follow these guys on Discord. You can also find them on Instagram and Blue Sky. You can actually now join IGO on Discord so that you can see what chats are coming up and you can have your questions asked to developers. Now, if you like this channel and you like the chats that we have with developers each and every week, please like and subscribe. This really helps our channel to grow. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Kristen. Today I am with Torben from Schleuder Games and we are going to talk about their game Space Sprouts. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell me a little bit about you, your role at Schleuder, and what you hope to accomplish with your game?
Oh yeah, for sure. And thanks so much for having me. I am co-founder of Schleuder Games, but also I'm the art director and main art person. So everything you see on Space Sprouts is I have probably draw that at some point, or I also did the user interface design and I wrote all the texts, most of them anyways. We're a very small team, so always a part of everything that's going on the game.
That's awesome. How long have you guys been around? How long have you been working on this title?
Okay, so that's two different timelines. We started thinking about this game about 3 years ago, and then after something like a year, we actually founded the studio and then started working on it for real. So the studio is almost 2 years now. I think end of the month it's our second anniversary, and development on the game is about 3 years.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And every
Thanks.
Anniversary that you reach is like, yes, we did it. We made it another year, gang. The thing that has really stood out to me about the communities that you're developing, particularly through your Discord, is that there's this really unique thing that's really happening in games where people can communicate directly with the developers. And I really love, both in social and your Discord, just how interactive and how communicative the team has really been, and also very receptive to feedback, very curious what people have to say. Can you tell me a little bit about how the community that you're developing and also the team that you're working on, how these things have impacted Space Sprouts and the direction it's taken?
So the thing is, our studio is completely work from home. That means we basically spend the whole day on Discord. We have our own development Discord and we hang out there and just talk, And we are a very small team, and doing this kind of game, you have to talk a lot because it's a very complicated kind of game. I think this kind of work needs people who are communicative. Like you can just talk and just figure stuff out by talking about it. So we hang out in Discord all the time, and then it's not that big of a stretch to go to our community Discord and also post stuff there and react there. And then also we had, up until I think a week ago, we had a marketing freelancer on board, Irene, and she did most of the release stretch marketing work, which was very good. We are very happy to have had her, so we could focus on the game a bit more, and she could just post out stuff and react to everything. Yeah, we're at the stage now where she's gone, and we have to take over from her, but we try to keep the same spirit going that she kind of established for our outside voice. Yeah, we're just trying to keep the mood up, because the community has been lovely. We like what people are saying. We have some people who are really invested in our game, which is also always nice to see. Yeah, it has definitely made an impact on how we see the game and how we feel about the game's release.
I think I may have actually interacted with her and not known that. Marketing is a huge undertaking, and for a game, very challenging, I think, to get heard. I think I saw something that there were 18,000 releases on Steam last year. That's, so it's really hard to get attention on your game. Yeah, so I'm glad that she, was able to kind of introduce people to Space Sprouts, because Space Sprouts, I played through originally the demo version, and now I started to sneak into some of the other storylines. And something that has really stood out to me, and we had chatted about a little bit before, is its unique blend of genres, right? You've got sort of gravitational problem solving, sort of very, very loosely reminds me of Portal, only in that you have to kind of bounce around and use, space to your advantage. But there's also sort of sci-fi. There's also this very emotional story that's happening at the same time. Have you found it hard to kind of categorize what this game is, or how you sales pitch it essentially to a player?
Yeah, that has been, I think, up until the end, has been the biggest challenge for us to kind of explain to people what the game is, because we, like you said, there's different genres blended into one another. Because it's a loop-based game, you are in your spaceship and you're going from A to B to your new home, which is kind of this rite of passage story. You have about 10 minutes plus minus. You can basically just try stuff out, experiment with everything. It has physical gameplay. You can just try out to experience and explore the ship in your own pace with your own ideas. There's no one way. There's no linear progression in the game. You can just try stuff out. Because we're in a loop-based game, we tend to also have some roguelike elements in that. And we have this narrative bit. We have comic intro, which is kind of like a visual novel kind of style. And this has always been a bit hard to explain to people, because when people actually play it, they get it. They understand the concept and it all fits together. But as a marketing pitch, it's a bit hard to do. We went to the Gamescom last year, we had almost constantly people playing our game, which was very nice to see. And you had to do your marketing pitch, You get used to telling people what your game is. And you could see how people reacted to specific words in your pitch if you changed them. If you said roguelike, then people who like cozy games would just say oh, well, that's not for me. If you say there's a timer in it, some people would just say no, that's not for me. If you would say there's narrative bit and an emotional story, some people would say, oh, that's for me now. Or that's not for me because I just like hardcore whatever games. Yeah, that has always been a challenge to do. And I think now we're at the point where we can really talk about it more freely, because we know now what the game is, because it has its final shape. But I think up until the end of last year, we're struggling a bit with how to market it, because are we a physical sandbox? Are we a simulator? Are we a cozy game? And it's all in there, but what is your focus? What's your target group? It has always been a bit challenging, like I said.
Yeah, I can definitely understand, because there were things about it that I played through a couple of different times. Sort of I guess intro would be the best way to say. It's where you start to explore the ship. But as I replayed it and discovered some more memories and other things that existed in there, I started to find, the hidden areas on accident, or you can turn off the lights or shift the gravity. And I didn't know this was here, this little hidden thing. And that for me was really exciting, but it is very hard to describe to somebody what it is. And maybe at some point we'll think of it as a new genre. I don't know what we could call it, but
what I think one of the most funny bits for me was one person said, I don't know whether I was on a Steam review or somewhere, said it's basically Outer Wilds without the existential dread. And I think that kind of fits the profile.
Yeah, totally. Did you ever play, I think it was a mobile game, did you ever play Monument Valley by chance?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that. It's not quite as three-dimensional in the puzzle solving, but there's this sort of emotional story that's happening while you're discovering this very unique place that you're in that's sort of otherworldly. And so in a way, it sort of reminds me a little bit of that. And I suppose I don't actually know what you'd classify Monument Valley as. I guess it's a puzzle game, right?
I'd say so.
Kind of in its own realm as well. So I mean, I guess that's kind of a unique opportunity to
but
game.
Monument Valley was very successful. As an indie game, it really stood out from all the other ones. Problem is, at the moment, I think marketing a puzzle game is really hard, because that's one of these genres where people tend to say I don't think so. And it's the same with platformers at the moment. You basically try to market your 2D platformer is very hard. You have to, at some point, you have to make decisions which terminology you want to use to tell people about your game, and which you try to avoid, because people will get turned off even though your game has elements of that, but is not a pure puzzle game or whatever you have. It's Yeah, marketing is hard. It's like these, you have all these different little things you can do and say about your game, but then you also have to think about your target group and all these things. It's just like marketing is insane. And even though you said like 18,000 games last year or something like that came out on Steam alone, and it's, yeah, being seen as a small developer is really, really hard. But I think the best thing you can do is actually also like make a good game, make it unique, and so the people who end up playing your game are happy in what they bought and with their experience, and like remember you in a way. And I think Spaceport is a rememberable game if you play it. It's kind of weird, you know? And I like that. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think I've ever said publicly, but I went to university for graphic design. It's definitely impacted my response that I have to certain titles, and something that I love about Space Sprouts and Schleuder overall is just the sheer playfulness, but also it's very apparent that you have a background in art. Like it's very easy to see it that in the game and out of the game as well. The visual elements that are in the title are beautiful, and even as I can't remember her name, but the character that you play,
Oda?
as she's swinging her arms and stuff around, there's no awkward breaking. Like every choice in it feels intentional. So it's very beautiful. The story's really interesting. I love games that encourage you to explore and play in the environment. But I love this game. It definitely has stood out to me a lot in terms of both the visualization, like visual communication, and in the gameplay itself. It's a really unique title. So I can imagine that would be very hard for marketing. But once you find your audience, which it seems like from what I've seen that you're kind of discovering the people who are interested in that gameplay. I have a suspicion that people will continue to be like, hey, I've just played this kind of unique, goofy, weird little thing, and I've really had a good time. You should check it out. Yeah, I'm actually very curious about the inspirations. What has inspired the development of this title and the story behind it.
Yeah, I mean, we're a very small team. Like I said, most of the time we were developing the game as 3 persons, and now we're back to 2 again, and we started as 2 people. And basically, the game is this product of the sensibilities of each person that worked on the game before. And on a visual side, I mean, that's what I can mostly talk about. The overall look of the game is something that I just like. I'm working also as a freelance illustrator. I'm also graphic designer by trade, but I don't work as a primary graphic designer anymore. At some point, I think about 4 years ago or something, I just started these little drawings about people living in pods together with plants, just like living in solitary space, like just this one person, like a gardener, tinkering with plants and having their own self-sufficient little pod. And I don't know, it's just like I always have, over time, I have these topics that I just keep on drawing. And when we talked about this idea, is actually how the whole game started, was that we, Lucas and me, he's another founder of the studio and also the main game designer. And we talked about just ideas we had on our shelves, like stuff we were thinking about that we wanted to do at some point. And one of my ideas was a game where you're living in this kind of little pod and you're talking to your plant. That was kind of the whole game idea. More like, it's not a game per se. You would just talk to your plant and the plant would change. It's more like a little tool that you can use for, I don't know, self-care. That was the idea. And then Lucas came into the game with his sensibilities, which were more like sandbox and trying around with stuff. He likes these games where you can just like try around with stuff. Like Minecraft is an early example, or he likes Hitman exactly for that, because like he can just try around with the level, trying all these different like situations and how we could solve them. So we came together, and I said, for me, that would be an obvious choice to just go with the illustrations I already did and try to put them into a game, like really trying to get everything out of these illustrations as much as I can, like into the game. I think I'm good for now with this whole solar punk theme, because I've been drawing it for 3 years now. If you're talking about it in a broader sense, it comes very much from my general like interest in science fiction, and I'm like a big fan, or I'm very inspired by Jean Giraud, Möbius, but I never really read much of his stuff. But I've seen a lot of illustrations that I really liked, and they kind of stuck with me. And then I started to develop the same kind of organic technology kind of vibe that you see in Space Sprouts now, where everything looks more solar punky, not so much like these prototypical science fiction shapes you have, like, I don't know, angular shapes, 30-degree angles, hexagonal shapes, all these science fiction tropes. And I really try to not do that, because I think if people would actually go into space and would live in space, their spaces wouldn't look like that. So that's basically where the whole look came from my side. I've been drawing it before, and trying to really focus on it and build on it for Space Sprouts.
That's phenomenal to be able to use something that already existed, a skill you already had. And I'm sure, as things went from paper to actually being digitized in the game, there were probably things that had to maybe change to actually work in the finished product. Were there things that had to be altered from the original images that you created versus this kind of end result?
Yeah, of course. Of course, there's always a lot of iteration when you're working on games, and I think the first concept art I did was a very moody piece where Oda would just sit there and meditate. It's a very, I can send it to you later. It's just like very moody piece of concept art. There are some elements there that are still in the game, but others who just we couldn't replicate for a proper game. Like the biggest example would be I would have loved to draw every room like uniquely, like a proper just unique room with unique art. But of course, if you have like 15 rooms in a game, and you also have like a level designer who tries to iterate how a room would look, he would need some assets to just try around with and try stuff out, And then we would, of course, like tend to go over to using like a tile set with like squares that you can build on. So all this uniqueness would have to go at some point, because you can't like draw a unique room. You could do it if like the development side would be done, and I would just come in like at the end of the production and then draw everything like in a unique way. But yeah, that's not how it works. And so that was the biggest, I think the biggest challenge from translating the illustrations and the ideas to the actual game would be to use a tile set and like these patterns, and everything has to fit together while still trying to maintain a more organic look, or like a look that doesn't look so much like built platformers, like where you can see, that's a tile and that's a tile. That's something we really had to let go, I guess, at some point.
There was a lot of intentionality. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to make it one. There was a lot of intention behind how the rooms looked, and I like that it doesn't look like the individual pieces. There's a time and there's a place for that, but I do think for the mood that is struck in this game, that was a very smart visual communication choice that was made. It looks really good. It doesn't feel like somebody's forcing you into this really tight and tiny space. You start maybe in one small area, but then it expands and it becomes something that's different, or there's a unique object that you can interact with. And so I think the level design turned out incredible. I'm not lying when I say it's like one of my favorite level designs that I've seen in a while. I've played a lot of very tiny kind of unique experience games, and there's zero hate to people. I understand level design is really hard, so I don't dislike a game because it looks tiled, but I loved that it doesn't feel like that in Space Sprouts. Like the gameplay itself feels organic as well. The game's beautiful, so I hope you don't mind me taking the time to compliment that.
Also, so shout out to Caro, because she was our primary level designer, and she did all the architecture basically, and the puzzles and the location design, and she did a wonderful job. I think so too.
That's great. Yeah, she crushed it. Yeah, I mean the work is gorgeous. Everybody's contributions look really good. They flow really well. As I was reading through the texts and the memories as you're exploring them and going back through the levels, it feels like you're sort of falling into this you're sort of organically falling into the story and discovering these little nuggets, both through the gameplay itself, but the story that's occurring as the exploration happens. It's a very unique experience for sure, and it's highlighted, I think, by the design, by the level design. The level design almost functions as part of the story, and that's a very cool thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Mario, but Mario's pretty straightforward. Okay, you go down and it's dark.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
go down into the water and there's water, but it's cool to partake in a very unique kind of puzzle exploration thing. I need a
Yeah.
better noun than that,
Yeah,
but yeah.
exactly, exactly. You know?
Awesome. Well, and yeah, you've done a ton of work on this title. You were mentioning that you've done, the artwork, you've done the writing. You kind of run a lot of the. It sounds like organizational stuff that
Yeah.
happens as
Yeah.
well. What was your strategy for structuring this story? Because it's quite massive. It's got a lot of tendrils, a lot of branches per se. How did you decide what kind of emotion that you wanted to strike in this story as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, how did we decide on the emotion? Like the basic way I would work was I defined at some point I defined a background lore for this world. Where does Oda come from? What is this ship she's on, and why is she on this ship? And of course, this also goes through iterations. The first version of the game was pretty different. Like, it had a pretty different background world in mind than the final product. I think the shape it has now was defined somewhat around like the middle of last year. I wrote just down a whole bunch of things, just like, free train of thought, just writing down stuff that I think this world is about. The idea is that people, it's a bit extrapolated from our current perspective, and I'm a Star Trek fan, so this might sound a little like Star Trek, but the idea is that people overcame the struggles we have today by leaving the planet, just leaving the planet alone. They went to orbital stations called nests, and they are only living on these stations, but they are living in synergy with plants. There comes the solar aspect. They trying to only use from the planet what they can give back, and having a symbiotic kind of relationship with planets, and don't try to exploit them for their own gain. And the idea is that people have already spread throughout our galaxy and keep in contact with each other. They have this ritual, which you play in the game, which is a young person gets on a ship, which has been handed down to her, and then you would go to another nest, and that's your new home. To go there, you basically have to decide what you want to do. You play the game, and by playing the game, you decide where you land, which is the end of the game. And that's kind of the ritual of the game. Idea is that these that you as a person don't know what to do yet. You start, like, I don't know how it was for you, but for me it was like that, and I think a lot of people can feel that as well, that if you, like, when you get 18 or 19 and you're done with school or high school or whatever you have in your country, and now you have to do something, find a job, get some money, I don't know, get your own flat, or whatever you have to do in your context. For me, it was pretty overwhelming because I didn't know what to do exactly. I know that I wanted to do something creative, but I didn't know what to do exactly with that. And so this kind of moment is the kind of emotion we want to, like, I wanted to put with the text and the lore in the game, that you're in the spaceship, but it's the first time for you being alone and trying to figure out stuff for yourself. But also your ship is kind of your safe space. You can just try around, and there's no death, there's no combat, there's no enemies crawling around or creepy spaces. I mean, the black hole is kind of creepy, but it's not a horror game. And you can just try around stuff, and there's no penalty. You can always just say, well, I just retell the story. I go back to the beginning and try again. And this is kind of the vibe I wanted to get into the game, that you can just try around and it's fine. You don't have to fear any repercussions or any penalties for whatever you try to do. That's kind of the emotional perspective of the game. But I think it still comes back from this first idea that I talked about before. I'm in my capsule all alone and just talking to my plant. Like this, I'm solitary. I'm just me here in this room. That's the same idea that stayed from the first idea until the final game.
Now that you mention this sort of required life transition, right? Changing from one sort of comfortable environment that maybe you're familiar with if you've been in school for a long time, you know everybody, you know these classes, but now that's sort of coming to a close and we have to make this massive decision. Well, it feels that way when when you're fresh out of school, it feels like the choice that you make will be permanent, it will be forever. Now that you mentioned that, I can feel that a lot in the game of what path am I going to choose? How am I going to solidify kind of this next chapter, whatever that might mean for me? And I do think a lot of that translates into the game itself. It made me, and I'm curious if this was intentional, it made me do a lot of self-reflection. I liked that the game sort of left this room for you to kind of explore your own thinking actually, and what kinds of decisions you might make if you were in a similar situation.
Yeah, I mean the player choice, like for us, a very important thing was always the player choice. We tried to not do any cutscenes or whatever that really break the immersion. The only thing are these core memories where you tend to stop or the camera would zoom out a bit. But besides that, we don't have anything that's interrupting your gameplay directly. And that's a very conscious choice we made, because we really wanted to have this game as your playground, your sandbox. You can just toy around. We when we are talking about, like during development, we're talking about all these different items you have, the tools, like you have this item sucker and you have, I don't know, a wrench and whatnot. We would always talk about them like a toy box. Like you would have like a box full of things that do whatever. You just pick one out and try around with them. And that's exactly the kind we wanted to have, this kind of experience, like that players have this kind of experience, that they would just try out how to overcome obstacles. And there's never one solution for going forward in the ship. I mean, at some point you have to fly, but you could use the thruster, you could use the fire extinguisher, you could, I don't know, turn on off the gravity and fly there. You know, there's always different solutions to every problem, and how you overcome them is your choice. I mean, if you manage to, I don't know, glitch somewhere in another room because you kind of try to break the game, then it's fine as well. You know, whatever. That was your choice. You did that. I'm so looking forward to actually seeing people speedrun the game, because we had a person doing a 100% and did the whole guide on how to get every achievement, and it was so cool to see like the whole list of all the achievements and how an outside person would communicate how to get them, because like I said, there's always different solutions to every problem. But yeah, I would really love to see a person, I don't know, try to speedrun it, because there's this limited amount of time, you know, like what would it be, 100% speedrun or any percent, or I don't know how that would look. You know?
If that ever comes out, I would be one of the first to watch it. That would be so awesome. Yeah, I love watching speedrunners for a couple reasons. They always manage to find something in the game that it seems like devs are, what did they just do? Those are the funnest ones to watch. Yeah. Or the developers don't even know.
Yeah.
How they managed to do what they did. Yeah, Space Pirates is very, very cool. And is it a game that's sort of alive? Are there future plans to expand it? I don't know if this is something that the team hasn't talked about.
Yeah, of course we are still like working a bit on the game. I mean, we think of the game as it is now as it's a finished experience. Like it's the way the game was meant to be, and that's fine. We won't like add any features that we had to cut because the release was there. It's like the game has its shape, but we are thinking at the moment about adding some things. Yeah, I can't talk directly about it because I don't want to make any promise about features that we haven't talked about yet. But I can say we are talking about things, and we will make somewhat of a update next month, I think. Just get some more fun stuff in there for old players and for new players as well. Yeah, because like I said, marketing is hard and you need to keep your game alive a bit longer. And also also we think there are some ideas we would still have like try out, like how people would react to them, because seeing the reaction of the people has been the most fun since the release. It's just very, very fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. I watched some of the streamers play through the game, and it was really fun to watch people's excitement exploring different things, or like playing with different tools on the ship, or finding some of those, secret little nooks and crannies in the ship. Yeah, the game is awesome, and I would totally agree that I think that it's done, or like a finished experience, I think is what you said. I think that's a perfect way to say, because it feels complete to me as a
Yeah.
player, which is what you want from 1.0, right?
Yeah.
Exactly what you want from it.
I think starting last year, we started doing playtests like every week. We did playtests with people, and they were playing like the earliest versions of the game, which were really, I don't know. It's just when I think about it today, how the early versions of the game looked and felt, and how the mechanics were. It's insane how much the game has evolved. But we always try to, if people playtesters would do a specific thing, like wanted a reaction from that, and it wasn't there, we always try to add that reaction in the next iteration of the game. It's like when a good example is, I don't know whether you tried that, but in the cockpit there are scissors, and the scissors were always the idea was always you can change your haircut with them, which you still can, but like almost every playtester took the scissors and went over to the overgrown vent opening and tried to cut the plants to open it. And it was never intended that way, because it's a scissor. It's not like a garden scissor, I guess. I don't know what's it called. But yeah, it was never intended that way. The fourth or fifth playtester did that. We said like, okay, well, we put that in because people trying to do it every time. And we had a lot of these kind of interactions where you're seeing people try to do that, then at least gives them some kind of reaction to that. Like even if they, we have this interface with codes, and if you put in the wrong code, you still get the memory out of that. The memory is you tried out a wrong code, like to just give them feedback for everything they do and really try to get that in the game. That's why we have 100 memories, I think, in the game. That's how we came up with a lot of the memories, because we just looked at what players would do and then just put it in the game as a feature.
That's great. And I think that clarifies a lot of the UX, I think, as well, for a player, because, it's something like entering your email in to sign up for, I don't know, a newsletter or something like this. If it doesn't tell you that you submitted it, then you
Yep.
stand there wondering what you
Yep.
did. And so I think games are a huge reflection of that. And now that you're mentioning it, I didn't even think about that when I was playing the game, because the design feels very seamless. And I can't remember who said, the best design is design you don't notice.
Yeah.
And so I nice job, because yeah, it's very well done. And I don't remember if I've cut my hair, but I liked the things like, being able to turn on a flashlight, or just being able to kind of like chuck things around the room. And the first time I played through, I had the suitcase, and I walked around with the suitcase for a while, just kind of looking around. And it legitimately was not until my second playthrough that I realized there was stuff inside it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was here hiding from me the whole time. So it's really fun to see these sort of playful experiences come to life.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. It's really fun to explore, to play. It feels very like childlike in a good way, not in
Exactly.
a condescending way. It's like it feels like when you're a kid. I have a very young baby. He's almost 6 months, sorry. And he'll like just reach for stuff and grab things. And it's really interesting to see the world through his eyes. And this game kind of felt like that to me, where I was like, oh, I can do this thing. You kind of see the light on his face, and that's how I felt playing the game. So I've had a lot of fun playing it. I hope people continue to brag about their experience on there, so you can get some more playthroughs and people, talking about what they love. Yeah, so thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm curious, is if somebody was in a position where they wanted to tell a unique story or make a unique game, a unique kind of thing that doesn't exist yet, what kinds of advice or recommendations might you give to somebody in that position?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think the kind of how you get into doing creative things, not just games, but anything, drawing or making music, or I don't know, making movies or whatever you have, is something very uniquely personal because there's never just one way. But for at least for me, I think that's something I really like. If I'm trying something new, you just try around because you don't have any rules in your head because you don't know yet. And then you try around. And most of the times for me, this first trying around phase is the most fun one versus the end of a big project where everything is set and you have all these rules in your head and you have to do this and do that. And I think if you're starting something, just being content with doing something and sticking with it and finishing it is fine. You don't have, not everything has to be a product or has to be marketable or has to, I don't know, adhere to some kind of genre conventions or people's expectations. You don't have to do that. You can just put something out. I mean, depends a bit what you want to do, but for me, games are an art form. They are a piece of art, and art can exist for itself. It doesn't need like a huge, I don't know, a huge following or a huge commercial success. It can just be, and that's how I came into game development again, because I tried around with stuff and it was very good. And I think so. Basically, what I would say is that sometimes you have to get a step back and don't like believe all the people that say like, well, your game has to perform on Steam and here are your performance trackers and KPIs and all this stuff. You can just make something and just put it out and see what happens and move on. It doesn't have to be this perfect game with a 10-10 score somewhere. That's what I would say.
That's phenomenal advice. I think that's very true that, first of all, something that you kind of touched on reminded me of a conversation that I had, not for IGO specifically, but with a good friend of mine, where we were talking about the fact that as kids, we're highly encouraged to be creative just for the sake of making something fun, playing with colored pencils or clay or going and playing in the woods or whatever it is. But typically by the time we're adults and have gone through university or high school or worked in, kind of corporatized environments, we tend to lose a lot of that creative edge. And it's something I've noticed in myself in the last couple of years. I used to paint every single day for years. And I don't remember the last time that I actually physically painted something. I love about indie games that they give people such a unique opportunity to tell stories or express ideas that we might not be able to hear in another kind of setting. See, AAA games are fun. I play at least a few of them every single year, but I do really love these very unique experiences. I love the way that you put it so succinctly of, it doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to make, the next big thing. It doesn't have to be the next Stardew Valley. You can just make something fun. I think that's phenomenal advice. And I think a lot of what you're saying really resonates with me. And I think is one of the coolest things about indie is that we get to make interactive art pieces that truly have never had a place and a platform before, recent history. So it's very cool that Schleuder's kind of like on the bleeding edge of this in its approachability, I suppose I should say, and how approachable, the industry has become for the creative. So yeah, I'm super excited to be able to share the game with people, and I hope that they love it as much as I did, and as much as it sounds like your team did. Yeah, if people want to know more about Space Sprouts or see what Schleuder's up to over the coming years, where can they find you? Where should they follow you?
The most obvious way to follow everything about Space Sprouts would be our community Discord, which is a nice place. Everything we post there first. And then if you just want to follow us on social media, then Blue Sky is the place for us because it has been the most friendly community. And we post everything there, secondly. And then we're also on Instagram, if that floats your boat a bit more.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Is there anything else you'd like to tell any of your potential listeners or players?
If you played the game and you enjoyed the game, please leave us a review. This is like the main thing we need at the moment because you get visibility on Steam. That's how it works. We have to adhere to the corporate overlords at this point. That's how this works. So if you like it, or even if you found it a mid-experience, just leave us a review.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think reviews are... I'm noticing that they are becoming increasingly more important. Like, they've always been important, but in the last couple of years, because of the sheer number of titles that are available, reviews really help.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're watching this, go review the game. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Torben. It has been truly a pleasure to talk to you and have the opportunity to play your game. And I will definitely be lurking in the Discord to see what you guys are up to. Also, when your stickers arrive, I'm gonna be really excited.
Hmm. Yeah, and thanks so much for having me. It has been a pleasure, and I wish you all the best with Indie Game Origins.